Have you ever caught yourself wondering why you let someone ruin your entire day? Maybe it was that rude stranger at the coffee shop, an overly critical coworker, or even that one friend who always seems to know exactly which buttons to push. Let's be honest, it's happened. But here's a wild thought. What if you could become untouchable, like Jedi-level calm, where nothing and no one could throw off your vibe? Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Stick with me, though, because what you're about to hear might just flip the way you deal with people upside down. Fair warning, these ideas are brutally honest, occasionally controversial, and sometimes downright hilarious. But if you're tired of letting others control your peace, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. First things first, limit your exposure to toxic people. Sounds simple, right? Yet it's one of the hardest things to do because of the labels we assign to people in our lives. Friend, partner, family. These titles can trick you into thinking you owe them unlimited access to your time and energy. Spoiler alert, you don't. Some people are so draining that being around them feels like you're trapped in a car with the windows up while they chain smoke emotional cigarettes. You're just stuck inhaling their toxic fumes. Now, let's address the tricky part. What about family? Isn't it taboo to set boundaries with parents, siblings, or cousins? Here's the deal. Family should love and support you, not manipulate you with guilt or hold emotional blackmail over your head. Sharing DNA doesn't give anyone a free pass to disrespect your peace. Let me tell you about Sarah, a friend I had back in college. Sarah was the queen of drama. If it wasn't her boyfriend, it was her professor. If it wasn't that, it was gossip that she spread around like confetti at a never-ending pity party. At first, I excused it. That's just Sarah being Sarah, I thought. But soon, every interaction revolved around her endless crises. It got to the point where hanging out with her felt like a second job, except I wasn't getting paid. Then one night, after a particularly exhausting 2 a.m. phone call where she berated me for not caring enough, I had a wake-up call. Why was I sacrificing my peace for someone who clearly didn't respect my boundaries? The next day, I started pulling back. No big confrontation, no drama. I just stopped answering every call and replying to texts immediately. I declined plans politely but firmly. You know what happened? She moved on. She found someone else to unload on, and I finally felt free. It was a game changer. Here's the truth. We often keep toxic people around out of guilt or obligation. Maybe you're scared of conflict or have such low standards for relationships that chaos feels normal. But here's a tough pill to swallow. Guilt isn't a good enough reason to let someone wreck your mental health. Protecting your peace isn't cruel. It's necessary. You don't have to deliver a dramatic breakup speech like it's some reality show. Just be less available. Start saying no. Let their calls roll to voicemail. You're not obligated to explain why you're prioritizing your own mental health. And yes, family can make this trickier. If the toxic person is a parent or sibling, cutting them off might not be feasible, but you can still limit their impact. Set clear boundaries. For example, if your mom constantly criticizes you, calmly let her know, "I love you, but I'm not okay with these comments." Change the subject. Limit your time with them. If Thanksgiving is a stress fest, make an excuse to leave early. It's about self-preservation, not betrayal. Here's a metaphor for you. Think of your mental health as a garden. Toxic people are weeds. If you don't pull them out, or at least keep them contained, they'll choke out the flowers. You deserve a garden full of vibrant blooms, not one overrun by weeds. But let's flip the script for a second. Sometimes you might be the weed in someone else's garden. Harsh, I know, but it's worth reflecting on. Are you bringing unnecessary drama or negativity to others? If so, use that awareness to grow. Life's too short to let anyone, yourself included, dim your light. Now, let's shift gears. A huge source of frustration comes from our expectations. Think about it. You expect your friend to remember your birthday, but they don't. Cue the disappointment. You expect your coworker to pull their weight, but they slack off. Here comes the rage. The solution: lower your expectations. I know it sounds cynical, but hear me out. Expecting too much from people is like setting emotional booby traps. When they inevitably fall short, you're the one who gets hurt. Take my old boss, for example. She was late to every meeting, forgot deadlines, and blamed the team for her mistakes. For months, I was furious every time she messed up. Then one day, a friend asked me, "Why do you keep expecting her to be different? She's always been like this." It hit me like a brick. I was the problem, not for being frustrated, but for expecting someone fundamentally unreliable to suddenly become dependable. When I let go of that expectation, her antics stopped bothering me. Did I like her behavior? Number. But I wasn't surprised by it anymore, and that made all the difference. Lowering your expectations doesn't mean you settle for mediocrity. It means you stop expecting perfection from imperfect people. Communicate your needs instead of assuming others can read your mind. Assume people might be late. Assume they'll screw up. And when they don't, it's a pleasant surprise. But let's keep it real. This isn't just about others. How often do you mess up, forget something important, snap at someone because you're having a bad day? We're all human, so why hold others to standards that even you can't meet? When you lower your expectations, you stop riding the roller coaster of disappointment and start appreciating the little things: the friend who texts just to check in, the stranger who holds the door. Those moments feel bigger when you're not weighed down by impossible standards. Now, here's a curveball for you. Start treating annoying people like toddlers. Yes, you heard me right. Picture that loud coworker who hijacks every meeting, the friend who thrives on gossip, or the relative who can't respect boundaries. Now, imagine them as a tiny, chubby-cheeked toddler throwing a tantrum over losing their favorite toy. Annoying? Sure, but also kind of ridiculous, right? Once you start seeing difficult people through this lens, it's almost impossible to take their behavior seriously. And when you don't take it seriously, you don't get angry. Here's the secret. Toddlers and annoying adults aren't that different. They lack self-awareness. A toddler will scream in public without a care in the world, just like an adult who gossips or complains without realizing or caring how disruptive they're being. They're ruled by emotions. Toddlers cry when they don't get their way. Adults, they throw shade, play the victim, or act passive-aggressively. Different methods, same immaturity, and most of all, they crave attention. Whether it's a kid yelling, "Look at me," or an adult stirring up drama, the goal is the same: validation. So instead of letting them push your buttons, try treating their behavior the same way you'd handle a toddler's tantrum, with calm detachment and a touch of humor. Let me tell you about Kevin. Kevin was that guy at work who had to make everything about himself. Team meetings. He'd hijack them to brag about his brilliant ideas. Deadlines. He'd conveniently forget them, then blame someone else. And if you dared to call him out, he'd pout like a kid who got sent to bed without dessert. At first, Kevin drove me up the wall. I'd vent to co-workers, replay arguments in my head, and fantasize about quitting just to escape him. But then it hit me. Kevin wasn't malicious. He was just emotionally underdeveloped. So I started treating him like a toddler. When he complained, I'd nod and say, "Oh, that's interesting," the same way you would when a kid tells you about their imaginary dragon. When he tried to shift blame, I stayed calm and redirected the conversation. And when he demanded attention, I gave him just enough to satisfy him without feeding his ego. You know what happened? Kevin's antics stopped bothering me. Without my reactions fueling the fire, he even toned it down, at least around me. It was like magic. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't just protect your peace, it reframes the way you see people. Instead of thinking, "Why are they doing this to me?" you start asking, "What's going on with them that they're acting this way?" That subtle shift makes it nearly impossible to take their behavior personally. Now, I get it. Treating grown adults like toddlers might feel condescending. But think about it. If someone's behavior is childish, isn't it logical to respond in a way that works for children? Plus, this isn't about belittling them. It's about preserving your sanity. Let's face it, you can't reason with someone who's emotionally immature. Trying to argue with them is like debating a toddler about bedtime. It's a losing battle. Instead, meet them where they are emotionally. Here's how you can do it. Don't take the bait. Just like you wouldn't argue with a toddler screaming for candy, don't engage when someone's being irrational. Smile, nod, and move on. Redirect their energy. If they're ranting about something petty, change the subject. "Oh, I hear you. By the way, did you see that new movie trailer?" Stay calm and neutral. Toddlers and annoying adults feed off reactions. When you stay unbothered, you take away their power. And when it's appropriate, use humor to diffuse the situation. For example, if someone's making a big deal out of something trivial, you could say, "Wow, this sounds like a real emergency," delivered with a straight face. Here's the deeper truth. When someone's being annoying, it's rarely about you. Just like a toddler throwing a tantrum isn't personally attacking you, an adult acting out is usually projecting their own issues. Recognizing this makes it easier to respond with empathy instead of anger. And no, this doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior. It means reframing how you see it. Once you stop taking it personally, it loses its power over you. Speaking of power, here's a radical idea. Start saying okay to everything. Not in the sense that you agree with everything or let people walk all over you. This is about emotional detachment. The next time someone says or does something annoying, upsetting, or downright absurd, hit them with a simple okay. It's like putting your emotions on do not disturb. Why does this work? Because most people thrive on reactions. They want your outrage, your defensiveness, your energy. And when you give it to them, you're handing over your power. But when you respond with okay, you're doing something revolutionary. You're refusing to engage. Think about it. Someone insults you. Instead of firing back, you say, okay. They're left stewing in their own negativity while you walk away unbothered. Someone criticizes your choices. Okay. It's not your job to explain your life to anyone. Someone tries to drag you into drama. Okay. And just like that, you're out of the chaos. Here's a personal example. I have an aunt, let's call her Linda, who thrives on stirring the pot. Family gatherings are her stage for passive-aggressive comments, and holidays, a masterclass in drama. One Thanksgiving, Linda decided to critique my career, my relationship, and even how I carved the turkey. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, ready to unleash a verbal takedown, but instead I paused, took a breath, and said, "Okay, that's it. No defense, no explanation, just okay." She blinked, confused, and moved on to her next target. For the first time in years, I enjoyed the rest of the evening without her nonsense weighing me down. When you start saying, okay, something incredible happens. People lose their grip on you. The coworker who nitpicks, powerless. The gossip-loving friend, deflated. The drama-fueled relative, silenced. Why? Because they're no longer getting the reaction they crave. It's not surrender, it's strategy. You're taking back control of your emotions and protecting your peace. But let's be real, saying okay isn't always easy. Sometimes it feels dismissive. Isn't it shutting down meaningful conversations? Not necessarily. The truth is, not every interaction deserves depth. Not every argument warrants your energy. Not every piece of criticism needs a response. By saying, okay, you're choosing your battles wisely. You're saving your energy for what truly matters. Here's the deeper truth. Peace doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from controlling how you respond. When you stop resisting reality and start accepting what is, you create space for calm. You start to see that most provocations don't matter in the grand scheme of things. So the next time someone tries to get under your skin, pause, take a deep breath, and respond with, okay. Watch how it confuses them. Watch how it protects you. And watch how much lighter life feels when you stop carrying other people's chaos. Let's take this a step further. Imagine reclaiming your peace by being unapologetically unavailable, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally too. Stop being the person who always picks up the phone, responds to every text within seconds, or drops everything at a moment's notice to help someone else. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "Sorry, I'm not available for this." And here's the kicker. You don't owe anyone an explanation for it. Think about it. How many times have you felt drained because you were too available? You said yes to plans you didn't want to make, listened to someone vent about problems they didn't actually want to solve, or got roped into drama you had no part in creating. All for what? To maintain some illusion of being the good friend, the reliable sibling, or the helpful co-worker. Here's the hard truth. When you're always available, people start seeing you as a resource instead of a person. They'll call you, text you, and dump their issues on you without thinking twice. Why? Because you've trained them to expect that you'll always say yes. Let me tell you about Sarah. You might remember her, the friend who thrived on emotional crises. Every week there was something new. A fight with her boyfriend, a problem at work, a feud with her mom. And every time she'd call me, expecting me to drop everything and play therapist. At first I didn't mind. I wanted to be supportive. But over time I realized Sarah didn't want solutions. She wanted a sounding board, someone to absorb her negativity while she walked away feeling lighter. Meanwhile, I was left emotionally exhausted. One night, after a particularly draining call, I decided enough was enough. The next time Sarah called, I let it go to voicemail. When she texted, I replied hours later with a polite but firm, "Sorry, I'm tied up right now. Hope you're okay." And guess what? She didn't take it well. She accused me of being a bad friend, of changing, of not caring. But here's the thing, I didn't budge. I held my ground, and over time, Sarah started calling less. The relationship rebalanced, and I felt my energy returning. Here's what you need to know. People hate when you set boundaries, especially if they've been benefiting from your lack of them. They might call you selfish, distant, or even ungrateful, but that's their reaction, not your problem. You can't pour from an empty cup, and if being constantly available is draining you, saying no isn't selfish, it's necessary. Your energy is a limited resource, and not everyone deserves unlimited access to it. When you're unavailable, you're making a statement. My peace matters more than your demands. The beautiful thing is, the people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. The rest? They'll either adapt or fade away. Either way, you win. Being unavailable isn't about shutting people out. It's about creating space for yourself. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are precious, and they should be spent wisely. If you're always available to others, when are you ever fully available to yourself? When do you check in with your own needs, your own goals, your own peace? Here's how to start. Ignore the immediate. Not every call, text, or email needs an instant response. Let people wait. It won't kill them. Set clear boundaries. Let others know when you're available and when you're not. A simple "I'm free to talk on Friday" is perfectly reasonable. Don't over-explain. No is a complete sentence. Reserve time for yourself. Whether it's for rest, hobbies, or just doing nothing, protect that time fiercely. It's important to understand that being unavailable isn't about neglecting others. It's about prioritizing yourself. When you stop trying to be everything for everyone, you create space to be fully present for the people and things that truly matter. You stop spreading yourself so thin that there's nothing left for you. Now, let's talk about the ultimate freedom, learning to let go of control. So much of our anger and frustration comes from trying to control the uncontrollable, other people's actions, their opinions, their choices. But here's the harsh truth. You can't control anyone else. You can only control how you respond. The sooner you embrace this, the lighter your life becomes. I used to have this co-worker, let's call him Dave, who was a chronic overstepper. He'd interrupt me during meetings, nitpick my work, and make helpful suggestions that were more about showing off than actually being useful. I spent months trying to figure out how to get Dave to back off. I'd subtly push back in meetings, drop hints about boundaries, even vent to other co-workers. None of it worked. Dave just kept being Dave. Then one day, during yet another frustrating interaction, it hit me. I couldn't change him. I couldn't make Dave suddenly become self-aware or respectful. What I could do was change how I reacted. So, I stopped trying to manage him. When he interrupted, I let him talk, and then calmly continued where I left off. When he nitpicked, I smiled and said, "Thanks for the input," then moved on. I refused to let his behavior get under my skin. Guess what? It worked. Without my resistance fueling the tension, Dave's behavior stopped bothering me. Did he change? Not really. But I did, and that made all the difference. Here's the thing. Control is an illusion. The more you try to force people to behave a certain way, the more frustrated you'll become. Letting go of that need doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start focusing on what's actually within your power. Your peace isn't tied to how others act. It's tied to how you choose to respond. This shift in mindset is liberating. It allows you to stop wasting energy on things you can't change and start putting it into things you can. Your reactions, your boundaries, your priorities. The next time someone tries to get a rise out of you, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, let it go. Smile, say, okay, and move on. Because at the end of the day, your peace is priceless. Protect it unapologetically. Now, here's where things get even more transformative. To truly protect your peace, you need to embrace the art of not caring. That's right, strategically, intentionally not caring about things that don't deserve your energy. I know it sounds harsh, but think about how much of your mental space gets eaten up by things that, in the grand scheme of life, don't actually matter. The trick isn't to stop caring entirely. It's to be selective about where you invest your energy. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine your energy as a limited bank account. Every time you care about something, whether it's a petty comment, an irrelevant opinion, or someone else's drama, you're spending from that account. At the end of the day, what's left for you? Probably not much. So why not start budgeting your energy like you would your money? Spend it on things that genuinely matter, things that bring you joy, growth, or connection. Everything else, not worth the cost. Here's an example. A few years ago, I was part of a group project with a team member who loved to criticize everything. Let's call her Rachel. No matter what I contributed, Rachel always had something negative to say. At first, I let it get to me. I'd replay her comments in my head, obsess over how to respond, even lose sleep trying to prove her wrong. Then, one day, I had a light bulb moment. Why was I giving Rachel so much power over my emotions? Her opinions didn't affect the quality of my work, and they definitely didn't define my worth. So I stopped caring. When she criticized me, I'd nod and say, "Thanks for the feedback," then move on. No defense, no overthinking. And you know what? It drove her crazy. Without my reactions to fuel her negativity, she had nowhere to direct her energy. Meanwhile, I felt lighter, freer. It was like cutting a weight loose. The key to not caring isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's about being intentional. Ask yourself, does this actually matter to me? Does it impact my goals, my values, or my well-being? If the answer is no, let it go. It's not your problem. This isn't about shutting people out or avoiding responsibility. It's about prioritizing the things that truly matter and letting the rest fade into the background. But here's the deeper truth. When you stop caring about trivial things, you create space for the things that actually deserve your attention. You start noticing the good stuff, the friend who shows up for you, the moments of joy in your day, the opportunities to grow. You start living with intention instead of reaction. And that's where real peace comes from. Now let's talk about the power of silence. Silence is one of the most underrated tools for maintaining your peace. Sometimes the best response isn't a clever comeback or a lengthy explanation. It's saying nothing at all. When someone tries to provoke you, staying silent can be more powerful than any words you could say. It throws them off balance, leaves them unsure of how to proceed, and most importantly, keeps you in control. Here's a story. I once had a colleague, let's call him Matt, who loved to argue. No matter the topic, Matt would find a way to turn it into a debate. At first, I fell into the trap. I'd engage, defend my points, and try to win the argument. But here's the thing. You can't win with someone who's arguing for the sake of arguing. It's a never-ending loop. So I started trying a new tactic. When Matt would start one of his debates, I'd listen, smile, and stay silent. No rebuttals, no counter-arguments, just silence. The result? Matt would eventually run out of steam and move on. And me? I got to keep my energy for more important things. Silence isn't about ignoring people. It's about choosing not to engage in situations that don't serve you. It's about knowing when to step back and let the noise pass. Here's a practical way to use silence. The next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Take a breath. Instead of reacting immediately, sit with the silence. Let them fill the space. People hate awkward silences, so chances are they'll backpedal or change the subject. And even if they don't, you'll have kept your peace intact. Finally, let's talk about the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. If you want to stay unbothered, you need to nurture that relationship. Spend time getting to know yourself. What brings you joy? What drains your energy? What are your non-negotiables? The more you understand yourself, the easier it becomes to set boundaries and protect your peace. And here's the thing, self-respect is contagious. When you respect yourself enough to prioritize your well-being, others take notice. They start respecting your boundaries, valuing your time, and treating you with the care you deserve. It's not about demanding respect, it's about embodying it. Think of it this way, your peace is a fortress. You decide who gets to enter, who gets to stay, and who needs to leave. Not everyone deserves a key, and that's okay. It's not your job to fix everyone, to please everyone, or to be available to everyone. Your only job is to protect your fortress and make it a space where you can thrive. At the end of the day, staying unbothered isn't about shutting the world out. It's about choosing how you interact with it. It's about knowing your worth, setting boundaries, and living with intention. And when you do that, you'll find that life gets a whole lot lighter. So here's the challenge. Start protecting your peace like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is. Cut ties with toxic people. Lower your expectations. Treat annoying people like toddlers. Say okay to the things that don't matter and silence to the things that don't deserve a response. And most importantly, be unapologetically unavailable for anything that disrupts your well-being. Because your peace, it's worth it, always.